my faces. He's here. Okay,
Hello.
let's make sure we stop the movie. Okay, and get all my pretty faces on here. We'll start with Cherry Cake first, just because we screened it first, and because Colin is here, and I never get to see Colin. And so, Michael, this is Colin in person. You finally get to meet one another.
Nice to meet you.
Colin is on London time, so he is, what is it, 6 hours difference between the two of us? So it's not too late.
I think it's 9 o'clock at night. I don't know. I'm in the midst of moving the last week, so I'm just like all over the fucking place at the moment. Well, no, we were actually. I was getting my house refurbished. It was supposed to take 6 months. It's now going on the 7th month. So we were in another flat. We get out of that flat, then we're in a hotel for a week. And now we've sort of come in here, and it's still a disaster zone. But that's enough moaning for today. At least I have a roof over my head.
Now, just so everybody knows, Colin Gerrard, I shamelessly blush because, you know, it is not very often that I have the love of my life to my left, and then on screen, I can't possibly talk about how much I love his work. So if any of you get a chance, Seven Collie Productions, Colin Gerrard. I'm a huge supporter. I screen him anytime, every time. I've been showing his film Eli, which most of you, if you're interested, well, it's your film. Give everybody a quick little snippet about what Eli's about, because this is hugely award-winning.
Well, Eli was mainly about sort of a moment in time, you know, where you come across people in your life that you don't really know, but they become part of your life. And in a short moment, you know, most people don't actually give people the time of day. It's either pushing, shoving it, but everyone's got a story to tell. Everybody does. And you don't know. I mean, I used to sell door-to-door in America back in the day, right down the road in Chicago, actually. I used to sell knife sets in Cabrini. When Cabrini Greens was still there, I used to sell knife sets door to door in Cabrini Greens. Yeah.
Oh my God!
It's a lovely place, actually.
Thank you.
No, the thing is that, you know, a lot of people will be very rude to you when you're going door to door, and you know, you don't know. Maybe there's something happens awful that day, and a lot of times people just sort of dismiss that, where maybe somebody's in a bit of a bad mood or they're not happy. But the story about Eli, it wasn't so much about the Holocaust that struck me. It was about the fact that everybody's got a story to tell. And there's this moment in time where you've got this chance to make a choice, not necessarily thinking about the consequences of that choice, but just you make those choices sometimes without thinking. And that's the path that your life ends up taking. And I just think the biggest thing for me about that story that I loved really was the fact that everyone has something to tell you. And most of the time we don't stop and actually spend any time asking somebody about themselves. It's always about me and my problems and what I'm all about. And I've got a problem, I've got a bad day, and it's, you know, stop for a second and ask somebody else, are you all right? Is everything okay with you? And tell me about yourself. And I think years ago, not to get too off track, but I was in Sicily one time, and I was sitting there, and this gentleman was sitting next to me, and he was quite ancient. And we were literally looking out into the ocean, and he spoke very good English. I mean, I speak Italian, okay, but he spoke very good English, and he'd been in the war, and he was telling me all these amazing stories about how he was, you know, captured by the Germans, and then he got away, and all these amazing things. And the guy that I actually did the research for Eli with, he was named chap that my missus actually ran into his daughter in Vancouver, Canada, and his daughter was just saying, "Oh, my husband's making a movie about sort of about the Holocaust a little bit." Oh, well, my dad was in the Holocaust. He was in, you know, he was in Dachau, he was in Bergen-Belsen, he was also in Auschwitz. And I went to go and see this chap. He was 90 years of age at the time. He's sharp as a knife, and he told me his stories, and I felt so stupid about the fact that I can complain about the fact that I didn't get my light fixture in today, or this didn't happen, or that didn't happen. And this guy's story he's a movie all to himself, Danny. And he was just his wife had just passed away. He was such an incredible character. And his story that he went through about escaping, and they came from him in Hungary in 1944, and they took his dad away, murdered his dad. He went with his mum and his little brother, first of all, to, I think it was not Dachau, but it was Auschwitz. And they stood right in front of Mengele, and Mengele said, "You to the left, you to the right." He survived because he was a bit bigger and he could work in the camps, and he never saw his mother and his brother again. But this guy's such a positive attitude. He talked about the fact how he got out of Hungary and came to Canada, and he went to Quebec, and he said they were so rude to me that I just jumped back on the train and went to Vancouver, slept on floors. So Arsene keep telling me his story, and you just don't realize people have such an incredible wealth of stories. Maybe not that interested you at that moment, but at the end of the day, people have all these amazing stories to tell. And if you just spend 2 seconds asking somebody a question or two, it's amazing what you can find out. And that's what Eli was for me, really.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, I see that one of the biggest accolades from that movie is you were nominated for a BAFTA and an Oscar. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, we didn't quite get through the. Well, we got down to the last. They actually called me, Tom Oyer, the guy at the Oscars, because I know he was the same thing. We got down to the last 20. We got down to the last, literally 50. Oh, sorry, I just lost you there.
You got me, Michael?
No, I see a little phone. Oh no, there you are. Can
you look at this?
See a little phone again.
Right there.
Oh, is it?
Michael sit on something?
No. Way to go! I finally got him on the screen.
No, we got down to the last 15, and Tom Oyer called me, but we didn't make it down to the last 10 for a proper nomination. So, but it was really nice. That's the second time in a row. That's why he called me, because that was also happened for I Know You too. Yeah, one of these days, you never know if we ever get back to making films.
Oh, you're not kidding.
We stop coughing and sneezing all over the place. We'll be fine.
Oh my God, don't even start me on this one. Let me say. Now, Jerry Cake, there's many people, of course, you get the jaw drop, because even I, the first time when I watched it, I was like, what the hell? All of a sudden, I'm like, did we just...
Oh, and Jane brought me the script. I mean, Jane wrote the script. She's just, you'd love her, by the way. It's a shame she couldn't be on the call tonight, but she's phenomenal. She's such a character. And she brought me the script, and I said, I just was on the floor laughing. And all I could think about is offering that part to my mum's an actress, and she's like getting up there too. But my mum looking at it, and she was so shocked. But the girl Eve that did it, she was such a, I don't know how to say it. She was such a spoil. I mean, it was luckily that particular scene. It was only me, Jane, her in the room, and the cameraman. That was it.
Okay.
So it wasn't too. But I mean, I can't tell you. I mean. Quite the goal, but Cherry Cake's really about something that I know a lot of people have, sometimes in America, when I lived in the States, I used to find it fascinating that if you showed a set of boobs on television, people would be shocked and outraged and calling the vicar and the president of the United States that this is disgusting. But if you show somebody's brains getting blown off on television, well, that's all right. And it seems to be a little bit odd to me that a pair of breasts will shock somebody into submission or freaking out or going straight to church to pray about it or the synagogue or wherever you're going to go. It doesn't matter to me. But at the end of the day, it's a natural thing. I mean, everyone has thoughts about it. And the thing about Eve, even she said to me, she was 85 at the time she was doing that.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it's 2 years ago now. 3 years ago now. And but she said to me, well, it's just a natural thing, it's what you do. And so I just loved the script. It was just such a sort of a natural day, normal things happening in the garden shows. Actually, the chap that plays the garden, Matthew Kelly's a good friend. He's a really good guy. He's actually quite famous over here. He does a lot of television and used to do movies, and now he's back in doing theatre a lot. He does a lot of theatre. But he just fell in love with it straight away. And he was another real sport about the whole thing too, and that's his dog in the film also, Gershwin. That's his little dog.
Oh, that's so cool. I like the chemistry, of course, between her and, of course, the man that comes over, of course, her object of lust, so to speak. He's quite the character, and he looks familiar to me. Should he be familiar to me? Because I was like, do I know this guy?
He's been on Broadway quite a few times. Although it's funny, they did a very, very British play about 2 years ago on Broadway, and it did really, really well. But the funny thing is, he sent me a photograph one night, which I could send you one time, and he said, I guess some of the jokes in the play were just not translating quite right. He took it just off the side of the stage before he came in. There's 2 fellas in the front row passed out. Sleeping away in the play. It's a great photograph. They're just like with the mouths gaping open, So he goes, I guess we're a big hit.
Yes.
But I mean, he's such a good guy, great actor too. But he's really sticking just to theatre now. He did a lot of television here in I guess in
Okay.
the early 2000s and the 90s also too. Yeah.
Well, and they seem to get along so well. You know, again, we talk a lot about on-screen chemistry and watching this, obviously, and he serves as a great catalyst for her, not just for her imagination, but he seems to just inspire her with each moment that she
Yeah.
spends. She's more brightened and she's more fascinated,
Yeah.
etc. So he brings out a lot in her, obviously. Now, talk to me a bit about the beginning. That's such a beautiful, picturesque with the narrative. It's perfectly done. Whose idea was that? Yours or Jane's?
Well, that was a sort of combination of both because I said to Jane, you know, she's actually now got a film festival of her own. They were doing when Cherry Cake got nominated. I think they were in St. Louis, which is an Oscar one too, and a few other ones, and they went there, and it was just not to slag off anybody's festival, but they were just really disappointed. And her husband Steve said to me, I bet we could do this. They've now started a festival called Discover Film, and it's exploded. It's just only short films, and it's absolutely exploding. They had Kodak come into them. They've got these. They offer the biggest prize you can get for a short film. It's £30,000, which is
Oh,
about
wow.
$40,000 for the winner. Yeah, and they
Holy
because they
cow.
got sponsored by. Yeah, well, the thing is, that sponsorship is great for short films because a lot of people don't see them and they don't realize the quality that you're going to get in maybe 10 or 15 minutes. That sometimes it's like when you play Netflix roulette, you're going through Netflix 1,000 times and you're
Yes.
like, and then you say to yourself, particularly as a filmer, how the fuck did that get made and where did they get the money for that? And fuck me, I mean, oh, come on, mate. You really got to be joking me. That's on celluloid. Come on, mate. It's just so. I mean, we all do it as filmmakers. We all do it. Like,
Sure.
what a piece of shit. How did that get made? And you're looking at the budgets like there's 30 million down the Swanee. Well, it must have been a tax write-off for somebody, or
Sure.
somebody said they wanted to be, a producer, so they had a lot of money and they got a car they can go to bars with and try to pick up girls saying I'm a producer.
Oh my
But
gosh.
but it doesn't it shock you a little bit? You said it, but short films, there's so many great short films out there, and the stories that can be told in 10 or 15 minutes or even
Oh, yeah.
less just blow you. And so her festival's just all about short films now. But the
Hmm.
idea at the beginning of the film was a little bit about, it kind of came from her mum. She never had a very good relationship with her mum at all. That's why actually at the end of the film, quite ironically, she said to me, I know my mother would have hated this film, so she dedicated it to her mum. But yeah, I said to her, the one thing I know about short films that I was always taught is, even in film school, don't put your credits at the beginning because you've only got a limited amount of time to tell your story. Put them at the end,
Right.
and just get to the point as quick. But she said, well, I said, well, then make a narrative or something over top of it, do something at the beginning of the film. And so that's what it sort of gave. But it was really her idea, not mine. I mean, but
It's
I
lovely.
just only suggested a few things, but she's lovely to work with. She's a real character.
I
Brilliant,
get the
brilliant,
sense of
brilliant
that,
thing.
yeah. And in the beginning, when I saw that, I thought, how lovely that this is put together, etc. And when you're directing someone who is a veteran, in this case, your lead is significantly older. Do you even need to direct them at that point? Do you know what I'm saying? They kind of are just so in tune with everything. Is it necessary to get into technique?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, I mean, in Eve's case, there was a very delicate situation there in that particular part. But Eve is, she's an old pro, and sometimes we had a few problems into a few extra takes because her steps were a little bit dodgy, and she was having a few problems getting over the stoop and stuff. So, but at the same time, I mean, Matthew's an old pro. I think that the thing I find with some directors is they hire people to mold them in the form that they want. But
Mhm.
I always say to myself, well, why are you hiring that actor if you need to mold them? You hire that actor because they're there to do a job. Let them do their job.
Well, and the other thing that I noticed too, who did the music? Because I noticed that it's set perfect, of course, like when the T is going off, that whole little sequence
Yeah,
that you
well,
have,
we
it's
actually
so
we
perfect.
that song actually we bought the song where we bought the rights to the song. It's an old Barry Manilow song that was redone by sort of one of those boy pop bands here. They weren't very popular in the States. They were called Take That, and
Okay.
they're like Backstreet Boys, that sort of thing. And they did a version of the song, and so we bought the rights for that. Yeah, the music. I mean, I was going to write. I mean, I wrote some of the other music for Eli originally, and then I pulled my music out of it. I wrote the music for I Know You, but
Yes.
in Cherry Cake we were going to write it. We started writing it, and then I said, you know what? Let's get somebody else. I'm too close to the project, and that's not fair. It's better to get somebody else's. I mean, I love the creative process of other people, and even the when we were working on Eli, the cinematographer Dirk Nell, we had a good connection. I used to live in Africa, and he was from South Africa originally. We had this really good connection about that. But the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, he would come to me and say, how do you feel about this shot? And what do you want me to do? I want him to do his job. You know, you can direct traffic as much as you like, but you can also cause a traffic jam if you don't shut up from time to time and let people do their job, you know?
Sure. Oh,
And the
certainly.
guy, I mean, actually, the guy, we have a Russian guy who's absolutely crazy on it. Sorry, go back to Eli, but this guy named Oleg, he's hilarious. And there's a guy with the story too. You know, it sounds awful, but he grew up in Siberia, which is the most awfulest cold place in the world. His mother was shot and killed when he was 9. His father disappeared when he was 12. He jumped on a bus and went to Moscow when he was 15, all by himself. Developed a life for himself, became a cinematographer, then became one of the most amazing camera assistants you could ever come across. This guy is the most amazing focus puller. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot to people, but focus pulling is an absolute art. And this guy and he was so funny, this character, the entire time. And then I heard his story, and I'm like, wow, come on, there I am moaning about the fact that, you know, my burger was cold today or something like that. And then I listen to other people's stories. And he's such a positive attitude with the guy.
Huh.
But I'm sorry, I get very random, so I got off track there again. We're talking about
No,
cherry
that's
coke.
okay.
It's called verbal diarrhea. Yeah.
I'm curious to ask, this is just Cindy's take on this, because I was looking at cherry cake, and what I got from it, the message behind what I got is that little things can lead us to love, meaning, in this case, her gentleman caller that's outside, that led her to kind of explore her own body, her own sexuality, her home, her love of her garden, etc. That's kind of the takeaway I got. But the real question is what did the director have in mind besides the obvious? Yes, it's comical, and yes, it's a bit taboo, some might say, but what does she really want us to take away from this?
Well, I think more than anything, cherry cake for Jane, and also for me too, is the fact that, it's never too late to be in love, and it's never too late to express your emotions, and it's never too late to express your feelings. And the
Yes.
problem is that in our society, we tend to throw the old out with the rubbish. Well, they're just in the way, or they're sick, or they're not well, or they're a burden to me. When again, they're a wealth of stories sometimes. And yeah, some old people are a pain in the ass. Spend time with my mother, and you'll find out. But she's an actress; they're all mad as snakes. But but at the end of the day, she's also got I mean, she's got my mum's worked with so many incredible people and have these incredible friends. And I mean, I won't drop names, but I'm just saying I sometimes would sit there with stories, and people would show up at the house. I didn't live with my mum very much when I was a kid, but they show up at the house. I'm like, that's that guy, or that guy, or this geezer, or that famous guy, and I just didn't see anything different. But I did find out that a lot of actors are very insecure, because I made some comments about a very famous actor one time about one of his movies when I was about 13. And I think he wanted to swat me like a fly out of the way. He wasn't too happy, but anyways, yeah, live and learn. But yeah, I think the biggest thing about that movie more than anything is everybody's got an emotion, everyone's got a feeling, and you're never too late to express it.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, how well did it do in its heyday, of course, when it was out and about, circuiting and otherwise? How well did the film itself end up doing overall?
Oh, it did very well. We were into Palm Springs. We got into St. Louis. We got into. I was a little bit more particular with that film. We got into the London Film Festival, so we got nominated for a BAFTA. We got into. I think well, and Palm Springs was hilarious because we went down there. Palm Springs Film Festival is great, but it does have a lot of the blue rin set. No, I don't know if you know that expression actually. The OAP crowd, the old age pensioners. And so I remember sitting in the crowd next to Jane, and there was a lot of elderly people. Oh, we've heard some lovely things about cherry cake. It's going. I can't wait to see this. And then we're sitting next to them, and they go all silent, and they're sort of like, actually, their body language is sort of pushing away from us in the seat because they're afraid that maybe they might catch something funny or something.
Oh my gosh!
But it did get well reviewed. But again, it's I guess you could call it, for want of a better term, a quirky film, so some people are going to get it and a lot of people are going to be shocked by it, which I found funny that they're shocked by it, but at the end of the day, that's just the way. I mean, I was at the Cleveland Film Festival this past year, and even Eli, I had a Q&A afterwards with one of the screenings, and at Cleveland, this woman stood up to me and said, I found this film disgusting. And I went, oh, really? I said, what is it that you found disgusting about it? She goes, well, you shouldn't be delving into the past. Just let it lie. And I'm like, well, I think the problem, madam, to me is that we don't delve into the past. I said, if I think we spent more time learning from history, we may not repeat it.
Sure.
She said, well, you don't know what you're talking about, and stood up and walked out.
Oh my gosh. Goodness.
Great. I
Oh my
loved it.
gosh.
Well, mind you, it was Cleveland after all. That's not exactly the.
Absolutely.
I was quite enamored with that city. I couldn't wait to leave, actually.
So let me ask, before I switch over to Florence, do tell everybody, what's the next Colin Gerrard thing? What are you doing now?
Well,
I
we're
hope.
working on a lot of stuff. It's just that I have 2 or 3 scripts sort of ready to go.
Okay.
We were actually working on a script about my old life in the door-to-door sales department, and there's a wealth of stories there. But I actually went back to, because I haven't been able to work there, so I went back to writing music again. So I'm just
Right.
hunting for. I used to be signed. I was signed to Warner Chappell Music when I was a kid, and 19, I had a record contract back in those days. So I went back to doing some writing. And we'll see how that goes also. But yeah, I'm thirsty to get behind the camera again one of these days. But hopefully this stupid virus will be over as quickly as possible.
Oh no, I
and
agree.
we can all get back to hugging and kissing and cuddling and all that sort of stuff that nobody does anymore. If I have to tap somebody's elbow one more time, I swear to God, I'm going to wear elbow pads.
Oh my gosh. All right, young man, I want you to sit tight for 20 minutes. I'm going to do the Florence panel, and I have something to say to you when I get finished. So just sit